The Universal Translator on the shuttlecraft. We can try that.
It allows us to talk to each other, even though our languages aren't the same.
This device, it's able to translate over 1,000 languages.
What's the theory behind this device?
There are certain universal ideas and concepts common to all intelligent life.
Hello and welcome to the Sci-Fi AI Show. I'm your host, Jyunmi, and I am joined by my wonderful host, Beth.
Hello.
Today, we're diving into the topic that sparks the imagination of anyone who loves sci-fi, and that's the Universal Translator. Now, Universal Translator is a technology that was popularized by Star Trek, and it represents how we can overcome language barriers and misunderstandings, and promising that we can speak fluently with everyone in the galaxy. But how close are we to this sci-fi dream? With recent leaps in AI technology, the idea of the Universal Translator might not be as far-fetched as once seemed. So today, we'll explore the latest tech, the advancements, discuss what kind of challenges lie ahead to achieve this dream. So stay tuned, and we'll unpack the science, the tech, and the potential cultural impact of turning what was once a futuristic fantasy into a modern-day reality. Beth, are you ready to break down the language barriers with me?
Make it so!
So, Beth, how close do you think we really are? What advancements in AI tech today can lead us down the path of creating a true universal translator?
I think we're pretty close. I think that we have some really specific technologies that let us wander more freely or intentionally into spaces where we wouldn't before because we weren't sure about the language barrier. I think that one of the things that is key in this is that the language translator is going to be something that you wear or carry with you, right? So it's in your phone or potentially something that the AI pin or the meta glasses or those sorts of things. I think that technology has gotten small enough that and ubiquitous enough that that's now something that we're going to be able to have.
Well, you brought up the meta glasses, so let's talk about that. All right. We've covered this topic in our research, back and forth for other shows and things like that. But the latest advancement that Meta has added to the glasses is the new Meta AI, right? And you can see here from the Meta AI page, they give the example of someone trying to read a menu in French, and Meta AI in the glasses will translate that for you on your glasses. So you have text translation instantaneously, whatever you're looking at, whether it be signs, menus, however you're traveling. I think that's just going to be a huge value add for Meta glasses in particular. Now there is another device that I've taken a look before, and this is Time Kettle, and they came up with something that is speech-to-speech translation. So this device here will recognize like 20 different languages and will translate them in real time to your earbud. So no matter what language, of those languages that they're speaking, it'll be translated and you can hear and understand everything that someone's saying, and vice versa. So this is meant to be for meetings and conferences where people are connecting to this device for real-time translation. And so this really boggled me when I first saw it, because I was like, oh man, you can carry this around. You do have to have other people connecting to the exact same device, and it does have a screen so it can translate to text for you as well in other situations. But if you're trying to have a conversation, this is exactly the kind of device that you need.
And what it sounds like is it's designed for conversations where there is some ambient sound around it, right? Mm-hmm. But the the iOS app in ChatGPT does something similar, but it's taking in literally everything that it's hearing around it, right? So this is fast. This is like more useful, I think, in a business standpoint, because it is taking into consideration ambient noise and focusing on the specific people who are talking, who have the connected earbuds.
Now, we've talked about this. So we highlighted a couple of our favorite devices that will I'll provide this level of translation for you. But just LLMs in general can recognize dozens or even like up to 100 or 200 languages in some cases. And so that is a closer element to achieving a universal translator, is just being able to get all of those languages into LLMs for translation.
Right.
Now, an interesting question here, though, is this is obviously designed for business use, right? So if you are traveling abroad or you're doing international business, you have a certain kind of professional language that you're using, right? But how well does AI deal with cultural context or regional clues or regional slang and things like that? And I think that's where we really have to think about how well can an AI possibly translate those so that you get the same kind of meaning. Like, for example, colloquialisms, right?
Right.
If you've ever watched an anime or a foreign movie, there's always subtitles, but the subtitler, all right, or whoever's doing those translation services for that film or for that show puts in their level of understanding, right? So if they're a native speaker, when someone says a phrase, right, how does that translate into whatever language? So you have to be familiar with both cultures to really translate one colloquialism to another colloquialism. So how well do you think AI handles that kind of aspect for translation?
Well, I think it's interesting because large language models learn within patterns, right? They are pattern predictive language machines. And that has the potential to include more culture and more colloquialisms in it than just this word equals this word kind of translation. Because in the same way that speaking English and communicating in English with ChatGPT, it's working on the predictive, the next word prediction, right? What is likely the next word that makes sense in the context of what I'm talking about? That happens within the text to speech and the speech to text that is going through the iOS app for ChatGPT as well. So I actually think colloquialisms and that kind of stuff is a little more possible with that kind of translation than something like maybe Google Translate, which has a little bit more of a this word means this in this other language.
Right, just basic sentence structure and one-for-one kind of translations. I get that, yeah. It'll be really exciting to take a look at that aspect for maybe even helping perpetuate dying languages.
Yes.
Like for example, Hawaiian is only spoken by a few thousand people in the world right now. It used to be hundreds of thousands, but now it's only a few thousand people who speak it fluently. And one of the most difficult concepts is there's a lot of contextual clues of what a single word or phrase could mean when you're speaking to different people or speaking from or at a certain place or time of day and things like that. So it'd be really interesting to see if LLMs could handle that kind of intricate multi-understanding or context for a language itself. So that in and of itself is super exciting because I'd love to have an AI tool that understands language on that level or our culture on that level so that you can perpetuate it. You can learn more about it. You can teach people more about it and things like that.
Hawaiian is actually a really interesting example because while current technology isn't multimodal in the same kind of way, we're told that the next tech is likely to be very multimodal. Certainly, GPT-5, and if not that, 6 or 7, right? Like that's the direction that it's going. And at my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Hawaiian dance is a communication-based thing, right? So certain movements mean something, and that when a model is trained in a multimodal way, that kind of language translation may start to happen. I know that there are Asian culture dances that also have like very specific, this hand position means something in the context of this. So it may be that where we're moving is more cultural understanding, like opening that up a little more, which could be very cool.
That sounds really exciting to me. I am all for that. I think one of the things that I love most about traveling is being able to immerse myself in those various cultures. And so, and having something like a Universal Translator and having an AI that can understand what I'm looking at in the correct context would super helpful for me to immerse myself in that culture that I'm visiting. And I love that idea. I think that's awesome.
I
in the next iteration of Meta glasses or something like that.
Absolutely. And I'm realizing that so I read X a fair amount to try to stay up on what's happening in AI because AI news breaks there first. And I am using the universal translation of ChatGPT and Perplexity when there are phrases or references that I don't get. I will take a picture of it, upload it, and say, okay, so what does this mean in this context?
Right. Well, I've seen people use ChatGPT now, with vision to identify what a meme means.
Yes.
Right. And that's a funny context, but that's essentially what that kind of imagery and recognizing things around us. Yeah. The environment provides us that context for whatever cultural situation that we're in. Memes just happen to be the latest internet culture reference that we have to learn about or be there to experience. Otherwise, we won't understand.
Right. It is a communication form. So like it's delightful that there is this universal translation from it. But also you said you referenced Galaxy in the opening of the Universal Translator. And I think the other thing that's kind of exciting is that ChatGPT can learn languages. It can invent languages. Like there are, and I'm talking about ChatGPT. I assume Claude and Gemini and the other flavors of modes of models can also do similar things. And I think that bodes well and is exciting for moving forward and wanting to understand things that we don't know, we haven't been exposed to yet.
Right. So let me propose to you a couple of questions here. So we've already talked about how a universal translator would be fantastic for travel, making sure we weren't misunderstood or to be able to communicate with people that we may not have in the past. Are there any other major circles or major communities that you think that this would be very beneficial to them? Or even in concepts like diplomacy or, the UN uses translators right now so that everybody in the UN can understand what's being spoken. Everyone could speak their native language and listen, and then they can listen to being translated. Is there some other great benefit, you think, for this technology?
Well, I think families where there's been some emigration, right? So perhaps the grandparents only speak their native language. The parents speak both, and the grandchildren don't speak as well. And so they can't communicate with the grandparent as easily as if everybody spoke that same language. And there were a couple stories that I saw around the holidays of people having ChatGPT open, the iOS app open on the table, and being able to, and the prompt clearly had been given, translate what if you receive Portuguese, return English, and if you receive English, return it in Portuguese, right? So that was possible, and then like a conversation could happen. It wasn't exactly real time, but also that's a family situation, so it's fine. You're delighted that you can have this conversation. You can say so much more, and have sort of a natural, hey, how's school going, right? Like, or like, without that intermediary. And I have also heard from for some reason, people who speak Korean. I can remember this story of like, my mother says this is a much better translation than Google Translate, right? Again, referencing that kind of cultural understanding.
So because of those kinds of situations, that makes me think, I know we've talked about lots of, positive aspects. Is there any negative aspects from the tech? Like I've heard of people talking about, would this stop people from learning a language or learning about a culture because they can just easily translate it into their own language, so they don't have that cultural touch point anymore?
I think people who are interested in a culture and a language will continue to learn it. And this just creates another option for being able to learn, and perhaps being able to immerse yourself in an environment where that language is the thing being spoken all the time. And at some point you wean yourself off needing this as a translator. The place where I think it might be a problem is it makes it so easy to go, are we missing the cultural piece that often gets communicated when you're learning a language in a traditional setting, right? Mm-hmm. Because there are cultural, like you learn the culture as you're learning how to communicate, because communication isn't just, I know the right word to say. I know how to say the right word and when to say the right word, and perhaps even more importantly, when to not say words at all. Just like be quiet. And this doesn't give you that unless you ask for it. Right? You can learn culture through this as much as you can learn language through these things, or at least through the iOS app, right, of ChatGPT. I'm not sure about some of those other tech. Like you could learn culture through the meta glasses too. The translator itself, that would be interesting to find out. Like, did you put...
Yeah, you bring up a great point, because even in Star Trek, that's actually one of like the story tropes that they consistently they come across is, okay, cool, where we can speak to these people we've just met, but we have no idea how to interact with them, and then that causes all kinds of problems that need to be resolved and everything. So that may just be a universal truth that we will have to deal with that. Forever. We just may be able to solve the instant communication part. Yeah.
Now, this isn't this show. We'll come up with some other shows, but maybe that's like, you have like your like little robot parrot sitting on your shoulder, assistant, who like turns to you and is like, no, you may not want to be Like, you may not want to say that right now, right? Like, I am monitoring the body language, and that body language seems to be indicating, like,
Right. Well, you brought up multimodal body language, whether you're through dance or whatnot. If you can read facial expressions, you can read body language beyond just, vocal language or written language. Sure, that's another layer. It's like, they look perturbed. Maybe not talk about that. Okay, moving on. Thank you, parrot. And sure, why not? It could be a parrot. I mean, they've got pendants, they got pins now, they got handheld devices. So we'll have to talk about the Star Trek communicator on a later show as well. Lots of show ideas, lots of things that we'll cover in future episodes.
Well, but I just want to say one other thing, because we're talking about this when we're putting the show together, and of course Star Trek is this. But my reference is also the Babelfish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And one of the things that does is that it's translating for you and potentially advising you without the other person needing to be aware, right? Mm-hmm. These other things, meta glasses maybe, and that earbud thing maybe, but the other things are like definitely it's a third thing in the room, right? Like I'm talking to my phone and then I'm holding it out, so it's speaking to you in a way that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, now that we have tech like Neuralink, it could just be all in our heads, and it'll help us out. That'll be the parrot. That'll be the little voice. It'll be like, that person's looking a little perturbed. You might want to back off a little bit. It's like, oh, okay. And that way you can just keep your natural flow, right?
Who knew that as AI got better, we were going to have literal angel devil on our shoulders like cartoons have, right? Like you're getting both of those, like, or our whole like advisor. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
So thank you everybody for joining us for today's episode. We have plenty of more episodes coming down the way. We will be covering various sci-fi genres, concepts, tropes, and the technology and AI that may lead to those devices and those ideas.
And we want to hear from you. Like, we are super interested in this topic and in the people who, the community that can get built around this topic. I don't know anyone who is paying attention to AI and has some sort of even casual reference to science fiction that hasn't had one of those like, holy crap, science fiction moments. And so we would love to hear from you. Let us know what yours are. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know about what other kinds of things you'd like to see us talk about.
Awesome. And remember, live long and prosper.
I did it. Thanks. Bye, everybody.